7:30, we can open the meeting of March 7th, 2023 Conservation Commission meeting.
Excellent. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with the approval of minutes. It's nice to see you guys had some great dialogue at the last meeting. Listen to that. And so I only had one mention to change, and that was on page 1, the reference to shoreline permitting, and it talks about the hosting DEP. Chapter 91 will be hosting the meeting. I'd like to change the language to training, and so that'll be posted. Any other commissioners have any amendments to the minutes from February 21, 2023?
No, from me.
Okay, so if we don't have any, can I have a motion to
Move to approve the minutes of February 21st, 2023 as amended?
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Chase.
Chase Carberg, aye.
Brian.
Brian Crowley, aye.
Carl.
Carl Melberg, aye.
Sarah.
Sarah Seward, aye.
Myself, aye. It is unanimous.
Fantastic. Okay, so administrative discussions. I have a few to add to that. One is just a reminder, the Wetland Buffer Zone Guidebook. One is that our Zoom, Tim, and I don't know if you know the update on this, if the Commonwealth's decided yet in terms of the in-person update. So if we can talk about that. And a reminder that our training starts earlier at the next meeting on the 21st at 6:30. And then one is at the vernal pool reminder for March 20th as well. Chase, I know you had asked Amy to send along an update, so still do that. And I didn't know, in the minutes you all referenced at the last meeting, the Open Space Committee, if we wanted to carry on that discussion, but I know we don't have 2 commissioners here tonight. So do we want to wait until we have everyone on to carry on that conversation?
I'd certainly prefer to do that, Sarah. I'd like everybody's input on that.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Tim, if you want to, if there's anything for Chapter 91, our training session for the 21st, that's all still a go?
Sure. Yeah, that was just more of to let you guys know that that's set.
Okay. Okay, and then wetland fee review, RDAs and waivers.
So Amy suggested that we move that onto a future meeting down the road.
Okay, yep, because we were still waiting to see what DEP is doing, correct?
Right, that's correct.
Okay.
Tim, have you or Amy gotten any indication from the circuit rider or others about when or if DEP is going to move their fees? I know a couple of weeks ago it was like a question mark, and maybe it still is, but.
Yeah, I have no new information on that. I think it's still to be determined when that'll be. Okay,
cool. One other thing, so we had talked, so we're going to postpone open space committee discussion. We already talked about the vernal pool reminder for the 20th training, and then we'll wait for the update from the Commonwealth has not given the update for Zoom versus in person, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Anybody else have anything they want to add to updates or actions? Okay. I think I just had a question on enforcement order on Ipswich. That's just waiting until we have good weather, correct?
I believe that Amy can't hang the wetland flags until the snow melts.
Okay. And then wetland buffer zone guidebooks. That was sent electronically, I think about a week ago, if the commissioners have gotten that as well. So the only other update is that we have 2 postponements tonight. The 8 o'clock notice of intent 166 Mill Road is postponed. And then the 8:15 notice of intent 107 Mattawanakee has postponed as well. So our first hearing does not start till 7:45. Anybody want to discuss anything that we've talked about already?
I did have one question, Amy, Sarah. I got a question from someone today about some work happening, maybe a single-family home construction adjacent to the frog pond by Long Lake. Is that project that we've looked at? Is the Frog Pond a wetland? Is it a stormwater structure? My understanding is it's fairly close. I haven't taken a look at it, but I've also maybe just missed the project.
Oh, is that Ron Raffy's project? It's on the corner of, oh my gosh, I'm trying to think of the road.
There was one on Ivy Road that we looked at. I think it was like a year ago.
Okay.
Does Ivy Road ring a bell, Chase?
I don't know. This is like fourth hand information. It was just
Okay.
That
Brian,
sounds like the one,
isn't
Brian.
Ivy the paper road?
Yes, but it's near the Frog Pond.
So as you're heading towards the lake, it's on the left, correct? If I'm thinking of the right place?
Yeah. Beach Drive. Oh, wait, no, sorry, Lake Drive. If you're heading down Lake Drive towards the lake, it's right on your left, like halfway down the road. It's a dirt
Yep.
road.
Exactly.
Didn't they come in?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. So I think, Chase, it's just that that was a while ago though, wasn't it? I think that they're probably just getting going on it, but I'm pretty sure it's permitted and that was done quite a while ago.
That was going to be my guess, right? Is that they got the permit and just took a while to initiate the project. And, I've been back on the commission for probably a year and a half now, but they've got 3 years to initiate a project.
Yep. Tim, can you just put that on a checklist for tomorrow?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I actually visited Zero Ivy today. They have begun construction there.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
That was a permit from a while ago though, wasn't it, Tim?
That might have been from, honestly, before I started up with Littleton.
Okay. I think it was a while ago.
I do think we should certainly keep an eye on that one, given the visibility of it, right? Like let's dot the I's and cross the T's on that. Not that we should ignore other things, but visibility sometimes can accentuate difficulties.
Tim, they had their sign posted and erosion controls were all good today?
Yes.
Okay. Then that's good.
Yeah, me and Amy have been out there. I think we went out like 3 or 4 weeks ago as well.
Cool. I have one other quick update, Sarah. 2 weeks ago, we had talked about the Webster property off of Buckley Road, and that came before the conservation, or that came before the select board last Monday. And the select board authorized the town administrator to spend some money to get the appraisal done to start to understand the value of it. I mean, I don't think anyone was willing to spend a big chunk of money yet, but everybody agreed, at least to some degree or another, that it was worth pursuing through the point of spending some money on an assessment. So that should be progressing to some degree or another in fairly short order. The owner of the property did express an interest in trying to have the town acquire it at the fall town meeting. And these things tend to move at a municipal pace. And I'm afraid that's probably that fall town meeting seems like eons from now, but that's actually a pretty aggressive timeline. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I would agree with you because I'm not sure how the balances come back in for the appraisers. They were very busy. So I don't know. And while it's a unique piece, I don't know how available they are. And then that, in fact, has to be sent out to bid to get the people to apply to do that. So I agree. Fall might be ambitious.
Should we be looking at grant opportunities?
I think Amy is Tim. Have you worked with Amy on that, looking at grant opportunities yet for the Webster property?
I haven't. I'm not sure. I can't recall myself now.
I mean, I know it was on Amy's to-do list, but one of the things she desperately needs is that appraisal, right? You know what? What's going on?
But also spring inventory I think Amy is going to try and go out there with maybe Brian or someone too for the potential vernal pools that are there.
Yeah, that's correct. She is.
Okay.
She's setting that up.
So,
That's 34 acres?
think it's 36, maybe 37.
Okay.
Yeah,
Around there.
36 and change sounds right, Tim.
Carl, you had a question or comment?
I'm just like, so I think it'd be, good for the commission to at least, I mean, deadline dates for grant opportunities come up quicker than you would like, and they come up very fast. So it'd be nice to at least be eyeballing a couple in the near future that, that would help us potentially, the town acquire this parcel.
I do know Amy was doing some due diligence on opportunities there. One of the concerns she's expressed is that from a pure conservation perspective, this may not score incredibly well. Lack of connectivity being the biggest downside. I mean, the upside, I think, to the town is that there aren't a lot of large parcels left for conservation. But on top of that, though, I also understand that the property owner had a historical assessment done, and I'm not remotely qualified to evaluate it, but there may be opportunities to seek out funding based on both conservation and historical value.
Is there a way for us, and Carl, you might know this better, is there a way that we can streamline this, that we can start to do some of our work? I know your discussion from the last meeting was like habitat inventory, you talked about the bats and things like that. Like, are there things that we need to do this spring, this summer to keep that going so we already have that for a grant or for the town?
Well, I'm wondering, like, I'm sure I haven't seen the property, to be honest with you, but I'm sure there's a ton of very large and probably fairly old trees on the property. Is that true?
Oh, there is. There definitely is. It's pretty diverse too.
So it might be like a New England forestry kind of thing. They may, I mean, that's the kind of property that they love.
That's a good point. Yep.
I mean, and they're right in town. I think it would be crazy not to talk to those guys. I mean, they have some serious funding behind them. So
would we like to ask Amy to reach out, or Chase, if you know them, to the Websters to see? It's also, I think, very beneficial to walk a property when there isn't foliage, so you get that bigger breadth of view. If the commissioners wanted to try and, with their blessing, give us a tour of the land.
We can certainly set something up. I actually asked Lyle about that, and his response was essentially he's at our disposal.
Okay.
So perhaps what I can do is between now and the next meeting, check in with the property owner, maybe ask him for a couple dates and times. Maybe I'll ask him for 3. I'll come in and see if we can set something up for that works for folks on the Conservation Commission who would like to see it. I think even though it may not score incredibly well from a conservation grant perspective, I think to Tim's point, it's a really diverse system there. It's really cool. So.
And like so, we may have to look beyond the traditional conservation grant programs, Chase.
Yeah.
And that's where like a group like New England Forestry Foundation can come in. And if nothing else, maybe they have the funds to take it off the market. And then, we figure out a way to pay them back at some point. There are groups that do that kind of thing just because
like TPL does that. Yeah.
They're interested in having the land conserved, basically. That's the.
Yep. Okay.
In terms of those here who are interested in seeing it, would evenings or during the day be better, and weekend or weekday? Just so when I get information from Lyle, does like end of the day, like a 5 o'clock kind of thing make sense?
Yeah, we do gain an hour this weekend, so that's good.
Oh yeah, that's right.
How about that?
So if I ask him for like a 5 p.m.-ish, couple days where a 5 p.m.-ish.
And then I think also maybe do one, if you could do a weekend or a morning of such, just because everybody's work schedules are so different or varied.
Sure. Okay. I'll work with them to get some options from the property owner and report back in a couple of weeks.
Awesome. Okay. All right. 7:45. Let's go ahead and open continued public hearing notice of intent 265 Foster Street. Let's see, Mass DEP 204-0980, fine grading and paving of an existing gravel storage area. Anyone here to speak to that?
I'm not sure we have anyone here, so.
Tim, the two that were postponed were 166 Mill and 107 Mattawanakee, correct?
Yep, that is correct.
I have Rich Sullivan and Pat Conley waiting in the wings. I don't know.
Oh, can you bring, yep, let everybody in. Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
Tim, that's your job.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know how to do that.
Hi there. Greetings for notice of intent 265 Foster Street. Anyone here that would like to address that?
Sure. My name's Pat Conley, work for Beals Associates, representing the property owners, GID Industrial Advisors. And Rich Sullivan is here, also from GID. So I'm happy to either answer questions, or late today I submitted some written responses to questions and comments from the last hearing. And I know that it's extremely last minute, so I don't expect everyone to have reviewed it, so I can either run through that or,
Yep.
I
think, Pat, you're in a good position because the hearings that are after you have postponed. So we did receive the update, but I think if you want to go ahead and go through that, that would be great, because not everyone may have received that at the last moment.
Sure.
We should also make sure the record reflects that the applicant submitted a waiver request associated with the project as well.
Yes.
Yep, and I can run through that tonight as well if you want.
But let's go through two. Let's go ahead and start with the response to the hearing questions.
Sure. Okay. Okay, so the first question was at what storm event will that spillway that's proposed on the western side of the proposed paved area, will that topple over? So on the western rain garden, so I guess let me show a plan to refresh everyone. So the gray is the proposed paved area. Over here in the white is existing pavement. So we are proposing to remove some of the existing pavement, and loam and seed is this pattern here. And then along the western edge of the pavement is a proposed bioswale with some landscaping, and that's to collect the stormwater and infiltrate it into the ground. We're also proposing some additional plantings in existing swale on the eastern side of the proposed pavement, which is between, the railroad tracks are above and then the pavement will be below. So in this next response, this top one is referred to as Rain Garden 2. This bottom one is Rain Garden 1. So basically this western one, Rain Garden 1, will overspill in a 2-year storm event. And the Rain Garden 2, the eastern side, doesn't overspill up until a 100-year storm event. And so the other part of that was, would additional armoring be necessary, which may encroach into the 50-foot no disturb. Based on our calculations, we calculated stormwater flow at 1.7 feet per second, which is below the erosive velocities. So we don't, excess riprap is not needed. And then for Rain Garden 2, it doesn't spill over. So there's no need for riprap in that one as well. The second question was, are pre and post drainage to the wetlands the same? And we designed our stormwater system to mimic existing conditions. Really, the whole design is to try to mimic existing conditions to the greatest extent possible. So stormwater will be stored and recharged in the rain gardens. And so when we look at the flow and the volume during a 2-year storm event, we reduce both the flow from 3.7 CFS to 2.1 CFS, and then we also reduce the overall volume.
This is one of those where I always get stuck a little bit, right? I understand the stormwater standards are there to manage flow, but at the same time, I worry, like, when we've got a wetland right there, are we at risk of we're cutting the total volume flow to it almost in half. And maybe at that point, we're really just waiting on infiltration to do the rest of the work. But I don't have a problem with it, but sometimes I do scratch my head on these, whether or not we're actually doing some harm here, even though we're maximizing stormwater standards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand that. So another commissioner asked if there'll be any excavating or fill. And then there was the added on that there's no stockpiling within the 50-foot no disturb area. Like we stated last time, we're really trying to minimize site work here, minimize the grading. So there's no importing material, there's no exporting of material. We're really balancing the site and just doing fine grading. As in terms of stockpiling, I'll go to.
So Pat, can I ask you a quick question right there? Because the notes say that there's no stockpiling in the 50-foot. So there shouldn't be any stockpiling in the 100-foot.
Correct. Yeah. So this is the erosion control plan that we submitted. And this kind of like rectangle here is our proposed temporary stockpile area. So it's well outside the 100-foot buffer, well outside the 50-foot buffer.
Okay, great. I was reading the notes, I'm not looking at that. Thank you.
Sure. And then second last question was the existing basin, which we had flagged as wetland B. Does it need maintenance other than the cutback vegetation? Part of the current plan, does it have an O&M? So that's referencing this existing detention basin here. It was flagged under the previous ownership as a wetland. So for consistency's sake, we kept it flagged as a wetland. It's clear it's man-made, but our position is if it's flagged as a wetland, let's treat it as a wetland, and we'd really like to just minimize disturbance to it. So we're not proposing any additional maintenance, and that's why we didn't include it in the O&M.
Should we include a condition here? I agree both with the applicant's characterization that it's a man-made structure. I also appreciate that it was kept in for the sake of consistency as a wetland. I do wonder if, even though the applicant isn't planning on doing any vegetation management, if we shouldn't include a condition that says that that's allowed, so that we never get crossed up for something that is, I think, a fairly easy thing for us to agree to right here and now.
How would you change that the applicant chooses and that the commission allows? What language would you wish?
I would say if it becomes necessary to manage vegetation in there, for example, managing invasive species, that would be allowed, maybe with notification to the Conservation Commission. Just tell us that you're going to do it, and then it's part of the condition, we can proceed. So necessary to accomplish it and notification required.
Pat, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. That seems reasonable.
I understand your client doesn't plan on doing anything, and that's fine. But sometimes we do get crossed up on seemingly silly things like this. So.
Sure.
So Tim, that will be important to note, that language.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments of what Pat has submitted?
So Pat, Carl, so the gray area is going to be paved, correct?
Correct.
And right now it's just got is it material that was put there by the previous landowner, or was it, how long has the disturbed area been disturbed?
I think on a previous plan provided to us, I want to say it was 2008. I believe it was disturbed and gravel put down under the previous owner, which was the stone yard.
So Carl, I think it went in 2 phases. So, but it has been quite some time.
Yeah,
And I apologize if this was discussed previously, but in terms of all the snow storage going in the back?
Yes, that's the plan.
Okay.
And that makes sense, you know, from a function perspective, it's the furthest from the building. Makes sense from an environmental perspective. It's one of the furthest areas from the resource areas.
and do we know if all the material that's in that disturbed area is clean fill?
I believe GID's getting a geotech in line to do some digging. I don't know if Rich has an update on that, but we ourselves haven't done any kind of digging to investigate what's underneath.
Yeah, we're in the process of engaging a geotech, but we don't have them doing work as of yet.
Thank you.
Is the expectation that it's clean fill?
Yes, I think we don't have any evidence of that it's not. So that's our expectation is that it was cleared for the stone yard and then gravel put down for outdoor storage purposes.
And I think on my observations of this site and of their others, there's probably some rock remnants, more of the consistency of shale that has been used kind of as some fill as gone further to the rear as well. Okay, if we don't have any further discussion on this, would you like to discuss your waiver?
Sure. So I guess the last point on this, but then also transitions to the waivers. There's Amy asked us about how many square footage of restoration or pavement removal within the 50-foot buffer and within the 100-foot buffer. So this information is also provided within the waiver, which included a graphic that would be a little clearer to see. Okay. So highlighted in green, there we have area 1, area 2, area 3. So area 1 is 265 square feet of pavement that we're removing, exists today. We're removing as part of the project within the 50-foot buffer to kind of help with compliance. Area 2 and area 3 is disturbed area today within the 50-foot buffer that we're proposing to loam and seed or sod, whatever the preference is. And then the other part of the question was the restoration between the 50-foot and the 100-foot buffer. This is just to tie off that circle. It's about 12,560 square feet. So for the waiver is for this work proposed here. We want to remove the pavement to be in greater compliance. We think it has a positive impact to public safety because has a net positive impact, helping with increasing, a little bit the stormwater infiltration and close proximity to the wetland. And then the area 2 and 3, by putting down the loam and seed and the sod, that'll should help be a little higher quality than what's there today. I can go step by step through this if you'd like. It's the standard questions. Or I can just answer any
My
questions.
2 cents is it may not be necessary to go line by line here. I think as the fact that it's a permit in order to remove pavement in the 50-foot makes it a pretty straightforward argument, consistent with what the applicants put forward in terms of being for the public good and so on.
I agree, Chase. I wish we had more waivers like this one.
Yeah.
Any commissioners have any questions on the waiver? And where are you? So are you seeking to have this closed this evening? Pat?
I mean, we're open to it. The last hearing, though, we discussed scheduling a site visit if the commission wanted to.
Okay.
So
And Pat, your peer review is still out with Green, is that right? I saw some back and forth with Green.
that's true. Yes, that's still outstanding as well.
And the geotech analysis hasn't been
Right.
done.
Okay. So sounds as though this would be, so the next meeting, let me just get my dates. March 21 or April 4. Where do you think your strategy lies with having those in order?
I want to be optimistic and say March 21, we can have some answers. I'll be sure to update Amy and the commission if Green feels like they can provide their response by then.
Okay. So with your permission, we'll go ahead and continue this to the next hearing on March 21, and Tim, you'll relay that to Amy.
Yep.
Okay.
Do we want to schedule a site visit or hesitant to do so, Sarah, given that there's snow on the ground and maybe?
Yeah, I haven't, what's the site like now, Pat? Has there been a lot of snow melt?
I haven't been out there in probably 2 weeks.
No, okay.
I'm not sure.
I think what we would like to do is when someone can alert Amy that there is no snow cover, then we can circle around and see if we can put together a site walk prior to the 21st, but there does have to be bare ground.
Okay.
I do want to note, Pat, I really appreciate the fact that you, in writing, addressed each of our questions. That made it incredibly easy for us to review and understand sort of how you reached the conclusions that you did. So thank you for doing that. It makes it a heck of a lot easier for us to move this forward expeditiously and reach the right conclusions.
Oh, no problem. Thanks.
Thank you and good evening. Okay. All right, commissioners, anything else that we need to discuss? Because the next two have been continued, so we do not have the 8 or the 8:15.
Would you like a motion to adjourn, sir?
Yes, it's 8:02. Would you like to do that?
To adjourn the March 7, 2023 Conservation Commission.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
All right.
Andrew?
Roll call vote. Chase,
Here's Gerbeck, aye.
Brian,
Brian Crowley, aye.
Carl,
Guy.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
and myself, I. It is unanimous.
Tim, can you send a message on to Amy to let her know that we've completed?
Yeah, sure.
And know if she was trying to jump back in after that meeting as well.
Yeah, I think she didn't know if she was going to be able to make it in time.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll let her know.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Have a good week.
Have a good
Thanks,
night.
Sarah.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Here.